This is the Storyworks Roundtable, where we have conversations about craft, because becoming a successful author begins with writing a great story. Hello and welcome to this week's Storyworks Roundtable. Today, it's just me, Alida, here at the mic. I thought I would do something a little bit different. I wanted to share with you my recent post at a room full of books and pencils. So if you are following my books and pencils Substack, you may already have read this, but maybe you don't subscribe to a room full of books and pencils. A quick announcement. So in June, last month now, I had a new essay published in Passenger's Journal. It's titled A Vague Association Between Self and Object. And it's the essay I wrote about losing my dad to dementia. So, again, if you follow me on Substack, you have heard some of this journey. If you only listen to the podcast, you maybe aren't familiar with it. But besides looking at the experience of losing a parent through the long, horrible process of dementia, I raise an existential question, which is, who am I really when a person has dementia? So much of who they are is stripped away layer by layer as, well, they lose themselves, but as we lose them to this horrible degenerative disease or condition. And watching my dad go through this, I found myself asking, if this ever happened to me, what would be left? What remains at the very end when you can no longer recognize your loved ones, when you don't remember, so much of our identity gets stripped away. So anyway, it's published. It's in Passenger's Journal. I will put a link to it in the show notes if you would like to read it. Now, I wanted to share this post with you from a room full of books and pencils because I think it's appropriate for the roundtable and because it says something valuable. I think we all can stand to hear this message from time to time, and I won't give it a big introduction because it's short and self-explanatory. So without further ado, here are 6 things I've learned that can help you tell your story. 1. You have a story to tell, and it is worth telling. One of the biggest hurdles writers face is themselves. Self-doubt is our biggest enemy, whether in the form of nobody will care about my story or I can't write it well enough to matter. Self-doubt kills the story before it gets on paper. Even if you aren't a great writer now, if you don't start writing, you'll not only deprive yourself of becoming the writer you want to be, you'll deprive yourself of telling your story. Whether you write it for yourself, your kids, or the wide world of readers, know that your story is worth telling. 2. Don't worry about what anyone else says. I have had lots of writers in workshops say they get hung up worrying about other people's versions of the story. It might be something as minor as their sister remembering the living room carpet is blue, or something as major as their sister characterizing a parent differently. This isn't the place to get into the line between creative nonfiction and fiction. But regarding that carpet, who cares? Regarding a sibling's experience of your parent, remember that your goal is to write about your personal experience. 3. Just write. Write, write, right. Another dragon to slay whenever you sit down to write your story is the self-censor. It gets sneaky and pretends to have your and others' best interest at heart. But all it does is prevent you writing. The censor will insist that you'll be too vulnerable, or so-and-so will be hurt, offended, or angry. It tells you, you can't write that. Turn it off and tell your story however it needs to be told. In writing about my dad's dementia, I was aware that my piece would concern both my father and my mother, his caretaker. The goal is always to be kind, generous, and sensitive to others, while remembering that you're telling your story, not theirs. 4. Make space for the process. Start with your physical space. Make it a private, comfortable environment. Block out time when you won't be disturbed or have to abruptly switch gears to take a work call or pick up the kids. Commit to that time you set aside, but know it's okay if you just sit there to think and remember. A lot of pre-writing happens in our minds before we commit words to the page. Set up the emotional support you'll need, be that a box of tissues, a pet beside you for physical comfort, or a trusted friend who knows you might be calling later. When I wrote my essay about pregnancy loss, The Sun Still Shines on the Worst Day of Your Life, I got up, made coffee, and sat on my couch in front of my fireplace, dog beside me, and wrote through the quiet hours of the early morning. I did this for days on end, writing until I felt sapped, but also like I'd just accomplished something important, letting it out onto the page. 5. Let it all hang out. Maybe your story is a tale of romantic adventure, all hearts and roses, but many of us have a story about challenges, even traumas. If you're feeling the need to write it down, its time has come, but that doesn't mean it will be easy. Writing your story means looking at it, revisiting the hard or even hardest parts of your life. Give yourself permission to do and be whatever it takes to get your story down on paper. You can be messy, sappy, ugly, morose. You can be scattered, emotional, and even a bad writer. What you must not be is a critic, censor, or naysayer. The best, most powerful stuff is often in that place we're afraid to go. Tell yourself it'll be all right and go there. 6. Revision is here for you. After you're satisfied that you have told what needs to be told, you will revise it. This is the time to worry about quality and refine your writing craft. But this is also, more importantly, where you get to address important questions about what, who, and how much. If your writing is for readers, any readers, ask if there is anything you'd like to change. Do facts need checking? Is some part of it ultimately too private to share? Could something on the page create problems for you? Who might be upset reading this? In what way? And does it matter? Sometimes our stories need to be told despite the risk, even if someone doesn't want to hear it or doesn't like it or like us for telling it. If you hold back in the writing, you may never really tell your story. So let it pour out, knowing that you will decide what to keep on the page and why when you get to revision. If you've got a story to tell, I hope these 6 lessons I've learned both by writing and by teaching other writers are helpful to you. If you have questions, feel free to ask in the comments at booksandpencils.substack.com. If you've already written your story, feel free to share a little about your writing journey. It means a lot when I hear from you. It really does. Of course, Catherine and I will be back doing what we do, having conversations about craft. And I look forward to seeing you again soon at the roundtable. My newsletter, A Room Full of Books and Pencils, is growing every week with new reflections, writing tips, and transcripts of the podcast. It's also where I make announcements about things like upcoming writing workshops and coaching sessions. Check out A Room Full of Books and Pencils at booksandpencils.substack.com. Thank you for listening to the StoryWorks Roundtable. Find all our shows, show notes, and videos at storyworkspodcast.com.